Have you tuning in at noon. This is a little different format. I'm in a undisclosed location today, and my guest is Dean Mike Walker. And Mike, what a pleasure to have you. These forums have been wonderful. And now, is this the Mike and Lori show or the Lori and Mike show that you guys do every week?
So it just depends on Lori's mood at the time. No.
It's being recorded. It's great.
No, thank you for having me come to this forum today. I'm very excited to talk about what we're doing in student affairs and how we're helping advance the mission of the college.
No, exactly. And just to kind of to tee this up, and then I really like to have you give a little bit of background, because there could easily be people who are new watching from the outside because of this YouTube and Facebook forum. But as we were coming on, I mentioned that when we think about, when a lot of people think about a college, it's always teaching and learning. So what do the chemistry labs look like? How are the instructors? How many buildings do we have? Do we have a rodeo team? Those kind of important elements. But you play an absolutely critical, and your team plays an absolutely critical and essential element to the to the students. So we're going to delve in to these wraparound services, and we're going to explore both what happens on campus and with our new move into a virtual campus, but with just a little bit of teeing up. Let's just go into your background, because you've got an interesting background and actually uniquely positioned for us as a new community college. So take a few minutes and catch us up.
So my background is I've had about a 15-year career in higher education, and I've done a variety of different things in higher education. So I have a bachelor's and master's degrees in history.
For a second.
Yeah.
You're pretty close to a doctorate. Is that not true?
That is very true. I've been very close. I've been ABD for several years, but I am graduating. It's true and for sure. I am graduating with my PhD in May, first week of May.
We also have this recorded as well. So
it is happening.
Yeah,
my advisor will even, her name's Dr. Susie Jones. She'll even confirm it. Yeah, but it is happening. I will be graduating with my PhD in education leadership.
Wonderful.
In May. So from Utah State University. So my bachelor's is from BYU Idaho in Rexburg, and my master's is from BYU in Provo in history. I also have a master's in higher education and student affairs from Utah State University. And I've also attended a community college at different times, and I a transfer student from Western Washington University and the University of Washington briefly before I went to BYU Idaho. But I came upon academic administration in a sort of roundabout way. I started actually teaching as an adjunct instructor for Utah Valley University in their philosophy and history departments for some time and briefly, and then I happened upon a leadership role in which I worked in faculty affairs and student affairs at their Wasatch campus in Heber City, which is essentially a community college. And over the years, I've also taught for Utah State University and Salt Lake Community College, as well as teaching for about 13 years, not quite, at Utah Valley University in both philosophy, ethics, and history, world and American. But the lion's share of my experience from 2009 to the present has really been in student affairs. So I helped with the tutoring center, the library, the testing center, ran the testing center, was the assistant administrator at the Wasatch campus in Heber City for Utah Valley University. But when I started at UVU as an instructor, it was actually Utah Valley State College. So I've seen transitions from institutions going from one status to another, and that was really interesting to see Utah Valley State College move into Utah Valley University. And so their roots are really interesting as well. But I built up my career as a student affairs professional, got my master's in that field as well, a second master's degree, because that's really where a lot of my passion existed. I enjoy being an instructor, and I think it's fun, but I really don't want to be a full-time instructor so much as I do. I really enjoy being an administrator. And so I had that opportunity there. I also worked for a brief period. So I worked at that extension campus in student affairs for 6 years, and then briefly worked for continuing education down there. So a lot of what Michelle Holt does, that's what I was doing from 2015 to 2018. And then in 2018, I was fortunate enough to interview to be the first Dean of Student Affairs here, Dean of Students here at College of Eastern Idaho. And I actually applied for, yes, this, so we've got a question here from Carrie Scheid. President Aman, you are the only one who asks about the rodeo team. My first week, to address that, my first week here, Trustee Scheid, my first week here, I had an appointment made for me by someone to ask and talk about a rodeo team. So there is significant interest.
So Trustee Scheid, I am trying my best to keep the rodeo team off the campus, just for the record.
So kind of what Michelle Holt did, I did that for a little while as well, but I was really eager to get back to student affairs. I actually applied for all 3 positions here, all 3 dean positions here, and got very fast rejection letters for the other 2 positions, which of course I was not very qualified for. And I assumed that the letter from the student affairs office got lost in the mail, from the HR office got lost in the mail. But in reality, Mary Taylor had left a voicemail and was kind of wondering why I hadn't gotten back to her. But anyway, it ended up working out, and here I am, and I've spent 2.5 years here, and we have launched so many wonderful new programs. It's amazing.
You know, you are so experienced in this, you know, and a way that we think about how we hire. So some individuals we bring in with a lot of experience from outside. Some we see a tremendous amount of potential, you know, the right kind of attitudes and those kinds of things, and we help them then grow their career. But you really have both. You come in with a wealth of experience, and you certainly have an enthusiasm. And we're not going to talk about your hair during this.
Well, why don't we?
Very professional right now, Mike. I appreciate that.
I do appreciate it. Yes, earlier this week for Halloween, I did have blue hair. I lost a wager I made, perhaps foolishly, to try to raise funds and food for the community food basket, and I ended up having to dye my hair blue and shave CEI into the back of my head. I'll post a photo in the comments, but I could only keep it for about 4 days, and after which I knew, you know, I had a meeting with a reporter and I had this thing today. And I just didn't think, you know, that I wanted that blue forever. So
well, exactly, an unforced error. It would have been an unforced error had that happened. Glad you fixed that. Anyway, let's get in, because we have a ton of topics here. But talk about strategic enrollment management. That's one of the things that is really important to our trustees, and of course, it's important to us because, as a new community college, we want to grow, and we want to grow in the right direction. So talk about that and how you think about it.
Absolutely. So I really think every college has multiple sides to its houses, right? And to the house. You've got academic affairs and you've got student affairs. But even within student affairs, there are, you know, certain types of activities that kind of more align in certain ways. Sort of counseling and social work and student support. That's kind of one area. And another area really is enrollment management. So our strategic enrollment management plan and committee is something that I've been starting to work on, and have been getting diverted for quite some time. But it's really about admissions, advising, a little bit about retention, and making sure that we're really following all the best national and regional practices for getting students in, getting them graduated quickly, and having them be successful. So it's like the whole funnel of everything. So I first started really thinking strategically about SEM. About March of 2019 is when I first started really diving heavily into it, because we were just I had been here for almost a year at that point, and had started to get a handle on all of the things that we really needed to work towards and the goals that we need to pursue and the energy that we needed to put into everything that we were doing. And so at that stage, I felt like, okay, now we can really work on a strategic plan that has to do with what we can build, because we've had insane numbers. I mean, 50%, 20%, last summer, 51%, this fall, 11%. These kinds of growth numbers are unheard of in our industry, right? And we want to maintain that, maybe not unheard of numbers. We want to maintain a consistent and careful growth after we start to normalize. So, for example, I came from Utah Valley University, where it used to be Utah Valley State College, and before that had 6 other names. And at one point it was Utah Valley Community College, and then all these other things. But the same kind of history there exists here.
Right.
And so we know that at some point this trajectory is going to normalize. But we need to still be innovative, be doing things to attract additional students, be doing things to really support industry. That's our main thing. Support this community. As a community college, we want to support this community and support this industry. So strategic enrollment management really looks at the whole life cycle. And so it's admissions, we've put in financial aid, the testing center, we've put in recruitment, placement, all of the activities, advising, all of the activities that would help a student either continue to enroll or to attract a new student. So recruitment activities as well. And so we're putting together a committee, and we're putting together a plan. We've recently hired a new associate dean. The position is interim for a year, just so that we can prove out like that this is a worthwhile cause to be spending money on. And we hired Dean Haley Mack for that role. I'm very excited. She has years of experience in most of these areas, and has worked at multiple different colleges in different parts of these areas as well. And she's been here for about 7 years. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really excited to have her as my right-hand person to help push this initiative forward. Of course, I'll be intimately involved. Of course, Vice President Barber and of course you, President Aman, will be involved in the process as well. But we're really excited to have her take some leadership on this. She'll be looking at best practices from other colleges. She'll be looking at accreditation standards. She'll be looking at marketing, and she'll work with Todd Whiteman on some of those things. Really, the drive there is to keep consistent headcount going up, and to also improve how our services are going, right? We want to make sure it's not just about the numbers, it's about supporting the students.
Right. Well, you used a term, and I'm going to probably steal this because I really like it. You said normalize, and we're in this open window right now, and there's a whole bunch of factors that are converging on us right now. And maybe you would reflect on what's happening in a university that is pushing students to us. So everything from credit to prior learning, to this idea of the university experience, to us having no buildings and moving into a virtual campus scenario. All of those things are falling together right at this time. And you're absolutely right that the student experience is absolutely critical. And it's your job to make sure that we're adjusting, we're bringing students in. They need to know we exist. They need to know what we can provide to them, and we talk about time to degree all of the time as well. So talk a little bit about what you're seeing just in this COVID world and this world of the universities, and the complexity there. So that's a whole bunch of questions.
No, that's great. So you're absolutely right. So the student experience, in some ways I think of my role as kind of like the chief student experience officer, right? So we're looking at like how are students behaving, what's attractive to them about a community college, why do we exist, why are we here to help the community, and how can we do so in the best fit. So students so traditional students have a different perspective than non-traditional students. You have to know all of your audiences. And at the same time, non-traditional students still like certain amenities and certain things to be present to be helpful. So the first concern really is time to degree and academic success. So we have to make sure that we're providing activities that are supportive of those things, of those metrics for students. So things like tutoring and the testing center and counseling, academic support, mental health counseling, special population support, disability resources, federal compliance, fairness, Title IX, those kinds of things.
Right.
But also a big one is student life. And what does student life look like at a community college versus at a four-year? You know, the four-year at $350+ a credit, that's way more expensive, nearly 3 times as expensive as what it is for a student. And with the pandemic and with the economic downturn because of that, people are really cost conscious. The nice thing about a community college is it's very resilient regardless of what happens because it's so affordable. So when people have lost their jobs, this is when we shine, right? Because we're an affordable way to get education. We have a vibrant student life program. Haley actually launched a lot of that over the last several years, and in conjunction with several others, several really great folks in that. And this transition, we've kind of brought that back. I'm going to be the student senate advisor for a little while until we can figure out another plan for our student life program. But even those kinds of activities, you have to look at it from a community college perspective. You got two audiences, and we're growing in both that 18 to 24 age, as well as the 24 to 35 plus age, and really it's 65, right? And then you also have some of Michelle Holt's audiences in continuing education and workforce training, where you have the older person. And so we really have to look at all of our audiences and take our offerings in ways that will be helpful. Now, do you want me to talk about the virtual campus?
Let's pause. Let's go to that next. But there is, and you're touching on this, and I like it. It is this in business. It's called KNC, Know Your Customer, and you have very accurately described that you know that, and you're working toward it. So there are students who come from a middle class background, mom and dad. We're around the lab, right? So there are a lot of highly educated individuals out there, and so we know the pitch to the underserved and to those students who are economically challenged and those kind of things. But and clearly those well-to-do students, however we want to describe those, can you make a pitch to them? Is there a reason why they think of us, or should they just go to a university? And this isn't fair to ask you that because I didn't prompt you, but I don't care.
I think that's a great question. No, this is my day to day. I'm never afraid of it. You know me, I'm not afraid of any question.
Yeah, I know.
So, in fact, it's probably more exciting to have a question that I'm not prepared for, right?
Right.
So here's the thing. I think that a community college is a smart investment for every student. I'm not going to sell every student if they're not interested. I want to make sure that Idaho's go-on rate is successful. For some students, they have a legacy, or they have their heart set on a specific school, or there's a specific program that they want to go to, and so they need to go to a different school. But I do think the community college is well positioned with regional accreditation and an affordable price tag, and the fact that you can still transfer to your university and graduate from that institution, that it makes College of Eastern Idaho and all community colleges really a very attractive option. You're going to save so much money. The other thing that's interesting about these kinds of students, these middle class students, or who are also perhaps academically performing in a sort of high level, these students could also finish here more easily and quickly and then move on to another institution. We have super small classes here. Our ratio, if you remember, we were the #1 community college in the nation 2 years ago, if you remember.
Yes.
that statistic. And so it's because of our IPEDS data, right? So our data shows that our student to faculty ratio is extremely low. So, and especially during COVID, that's the case. But we have very small class sizes. This is an intimate environment, and it's a great place for people to finish. Also, some of these high-performing students, they did early college or dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment in their high school or on campus. And so because they have these credits, it's easy to just come and complete here. make it a one-year college, fine. We only have, have them all get those credits, get almost a year's worth or more credits in their high school experience for those traditional students. But at the same vein, we offer all the classes, the prerequisites, everything they need to go to Boise State, Idaho State, Lewis Clark. And actually, our general education office, including Angela Sackett, Dean Sackett, and Danielle Stimson, have worked really hard on partnerships with institutions outside of the state, Utah State University, University of Montana, Montana Tech, the list goes on. And so we have really great relationships with other institutions, plus regional accreditation. So for a middle-class student with INL parents or whatever, this is still a super smart option. This is a great option for almost any student. At $129 a credit, we're one of the most affordable options in the country. I think the California colleges are a little bit cheaper than we are, but that's about it in terms of community colleges. We are very affordable. And so it's a great option. It's all regional. All of your credits will transfer. You can also bring in any AP or international baccalaureate. Alturas International School is starting an international baccalaureate program. All of those things can come in. You can even take tests to CLEP out. And we even offer high stakes testing here on our campus for students who want to get certifications. So even if you're a working professional, there are options and there are ways that we as a community college serve you and serve employers.
So we're in this really interesting period, and this is the COVID period. So if you are a very well-prepared high school graduate and a freshman or sophomore, why do you want to live in a dorm and not have face-to-face classes or any of that when you're paying for that full university experience, but it is so limited if it exists at all? It just makes us a great solution to that student.
Absolutely. These colleges, a lot of them have COVID dorms now. I mean, if you're going to do that, you might as well just stay at home. The reality is the cost is so affordable, and we offer a full plate of student life activities for traditional students and non-traditional students. And we cater to all of our students' needs. So you might not live with the people that you go to school with, there are apartment complexes close by as well, if that's really what you're looking for. But that's the model that even BYU Idaho has moved to. They don't own most of their housing anymore. It's the off-campus experience is through apartment complexes. And so really, COVID has made living on campus very complicated for those colleges and universities that have large residence halls. So we're fortunate. I think it would be nice to have closer access housing for our students, to be sure. And in the coming years, we'll get there. But the reality is that's a very expensive proposition. I remember as a freshman, I was a freshman at Western Washington University before I transferred, and it was extremely expensive. And I think about my parents, what they spent on my traditional freshman experience versus how I could have had still the same amount of fun without having that traditional experience. It's astounding, the cost differential. But in a pandemic, it's even more poignant that this is a great way. And if you still want that experience, be a transfer student. I mean, there are ways to do that at Idaho State, at Boise State, anywhere in the country, really.
So you brought this up and I wanted to cover it, and this is a good time. And that is our relationship with the high school and the relationship with dual credit. And Mary Stevenson has just been extraordinary in her vision for that. So talk a little bit about that, because that is a wonderful pipeline into the community college, into us. So what's going on with that our viewers might be interested in?
So absolutely. So Idaho does some really awesome things for offers some really awesome opportunities for high school students who are interested in college credit and interested in advancing their careers earlier. Amy Brumfield said something really interesting the other day, and I thought it was a really fun way of thinking about it. It's like giving yourself a $50,000 raise. If you can finish college earlier, then you're going to be in the workforce earlier, and you could get a job earlier that pays a lot of money. by getting these credits done more quickly. So Mary Stevenson and I have actually been friends for a number of years. We both actually came from Utah Valley University, and she's worked in that field for quite some time. I was a researcher briefly in that field as well. But basically, early college or dual credit or concurrent enrollment, all these are fairly interchangeable terms. But what they are is opportunity for students to take credits either at their high school for college credit, or here on campus at College of Eastern Idaho or one of the other 8 state institutions. And actually some of the private schools do it as well, Northwest Nazarene, College of Idaho, and BYU Idaho. So what the students can do is the state of Idaho, the legislature has generously granted each student $4,500 to spend on college education while they're still in high school. So it's a no-brainer. I mean, if you can hack it, if you can take a couple classes, even if you only get 1 or 2 done, you've gotten your feet wet, you've gotten the experience that you need, you're starting to understand what it's like to be a college student. Or like some of our graduates, we had our first one last year as a new community college, they actually complete their Associate of Arts or Associate of Science degree while in high school. And the other cool part about it is it's not just general education. There are career technical education classes that you can take with your Advanced Opportunities funds from the state of Idaho. So Idaho has been really progressive as far as doing this. We really want to make sure that our students are moving forward and moving ahead in getting an education and getting into their careers and their jobs faster so that they can be more successful. Plus, what if you want more education? How much better would it be to get those advanced degrees earlier and at a younger age and better prepared? Plus, some of these careers, Rick, some of these careers are phenomenal. I mean, when you think about like our partnership with Idaho National Lab, this is a singular experience. John Detweiler's program, Radiation Safety, is so wonderful as an opportunity for especially some of these younger students that are getting into this program and then end up with a pathway at a job making more than you or I do. Well, maybe not more than you.
It's close. It's close. Like, yeah.
Eventually, though, I mean, it's about a career, and to get that step in the door at a place like Idaho National Lab or Melaleuca or Premier Technologies or Elevation Labs or any of these other many great local Idaho companies, or even ERMAC or Idaho Falls Community Hospital. There's just so many opportunities, and the tech sector here is growing and it's going to explode. Idaho Falls is primed to grow, and as I'm engaged in the Chamber of Commerce and also at the Museum of Idaho, there are so many things that we can do to support students and to support businesses to build this amazing career pathway.
You know, as you recall, we are new and young and didn't know better, so we asked for $823,000 for a virtual campus about 4 or 5 months ago, and of course that didn't happen. But nevertheless, nevertheless,
my hand is still in that cookie jar, Rick.
Well, yeah, there are multiple of us, not in and maybe at the forefront is Anne Marie Peters, but yeah, we've been asking for more money in that because it's an important strategy. So I think it's pretty clear from a student delivering just the classes online, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous, but you and your team play a really important role in the virtual campus online learning. Describe a little bit about what you've done to merge into that realm.
Thank you so much for that question, Rick. So first, before I answer that question, I want to make a shout out to my team, and specifically some of them who have done amazing things, worked wonders during this pandemic. So I'm thankful, first of all, that Ryan Faulkner and his team in online learning really were already positioning themselves so well. Ryan is a phenomenal researcher and really knows his field so well and prepared us in online learning years before this pandemic. So when we had to make some pivots, it wasn't too terrible of a stretch. But my whole team did a wonderful job. Justin Esplin and his team, Josh, Courtney, and Katie, and at the time Jamie, during the pandemic, really found a way to offer new student orientations virtually, and to do advising virtually, and to do things very quickly. And they did this in about a week. I mean, it was pretty phenomenal how they were, and Ryan Faulkner's team really helped them all out very well. Same thing with Haley Mack's team, Connor Effie and Lori Killian. They all really just found ways to engage with students through Zoom and through other CEI Connect. Effie has been leading CEI Connect and is now leading multicultural student services. And so I'm super excited for us to build on all of, let's have all of our students, every student is welcome here, whatever political persuasion, whatever background, whatever, anything. We want all the students here, right? We want to bring everyone here, and we want it to be a great opportunity. So that's what we've been doing, right? What we found as well after this pandemic, after the pandemic quarantine hit, we found that students really wanted virtual new student orientations. So whether they're attending face-to-face or not, that's their option. And then we give them a face-to-face option if they want it, but people like the convenience. And so these virtual student campus, this virtual campus, initiative that we're doing for virtual student services is really to help all of our students, whether they're a face-to-face student, a hybrid student, or a fully online student. We are providing student support services with options. So they can do anything that they want with that virtually. And actually the college has supported this initiative. We've hired 3 virtual campus advisors. They're wonderfully talented individuals, and we've trained them. They can do all of the things, but also virtually. So they can do it via webcam. They can do it through some tools in our LMS. And it makes it a better experience, and really convenience and options. So whether you're a single mom or dad and you've got a job and you're busy, or you're an 18-year-old and you just want to flex your time a little bit more, or anything in between, we have options for you. And we're going to only increase those virtual student services. During the pandemic, our former director of counseling services, Dawn Curitin, did virtual counseling through Zoom. Like, we offered lots of support. And Larry Surtees, our testing center director, did a phenomenal job making sure that we had virtual proctoring options, and found ways to accommodate physical distancing in his centers. And all of our teams, Dan Bruderer in Disability Resources, and Julie McMurtry and her team in Center for New Directions, they found ways to support students at a distance that was really difficult. I mean, that's not an easy thing. I mean, to connect and find ways to connect virtually, but they did it, and it was really great. And in the summer, the people vote with their feet, right? So our summer semester was up 51%. Now, I need to give Dean Angela Sackett and Dean Clint Redding some credit for their part.
Yeah,
it's not my team that did all of the things, but the fact that we had more opportunities and options was really great. And I also credit you for a year ago really pushing us and saying, okay, we need to move into 8-week block classes as well. So now we have a block A, early 8-week class semester. And then we have a module of block B classes that are 8 weeks. And then we have our full semester 16-week courses. And there's online options in all 3 of those options. And what's really great about that is that's why I think we had so many more enrollments, is we had options for people like, oh, look, you missed out in August. Before, we had to make them wait until January. But no, now they were able to start October 19th of this year and get some classes. And so we had almost no people that were super frustrated on that second week in August when classes were started and you couldn't add anymore. So I think this virtual campus is all about providing students with options and doing what we can to provide options. Now, sometimes too many options is too many options, but we've done it. And kudos also in this virtual campus to the business office, they have done some amazing things to streamline all of our various options. And we're even looking at this in terms of student life activities, right? So we had a thriving nascent esports program that we had just gotten proof of concept literally right before the quarantine. We had even posted the esports coordinator positions and people had applied. And then we had to sort of put a kibosh to it. But right now, we're coming up with options that we can do for virtual esports so that our students can have, that are interested in gaming and interested in connecting with each other in another format, can have some options. So, and we're even looking at these kinds of things from service learning opportunities and a whole slew and variety of ways to help support students.
So the really interesting thing about virtual wraparound student services is it applies to face-to-face students too. They may want to take advantage of it. So we really have, it isn't aimed at solely those online students, but any student who may or may not want to come onto campus can actually be served at a distance. It's a wonderful model that you've developed.
Well, I appreciate that. It's been a large team effort. We're very fortunate. I know Vice President Barber always talks about this, but we really have hired right, and it comes from the top, right? You have helped instill values with us through members of PAC, Mary Taylor and Byron and Lori, about the kinds of individuals that will be successful here and who we look to hire here. And we've hired right. We really have phenomenal employees who know how to build camaraderie and how to help students. And yes, we have included all types of students in this. So the wraparound services, whoever wants to take advantage of those can take advantage of those services. And it even extends to our partnerships with the University of Idaho and Idaho State University, for example, in our transfer office. Courtney Richards heading that up and has done a great job working with those individuals in making sure that that they can provide services for our students, and that actually extends to other institutions too. Grand Canyon is here as well, and yeah. Amy from there visits with a lot of our students who are getting ready to transfer.
You know, one of the areas we did take a pretty significant reduction from the state this year. So we look at grant opportunities, and you have done, you and your team and a number outside of your team of our staff have worked hard on a variety of these grant opportunities. So just tick off a couple and what those do, because we've been quite successful with those grants.
We have. So I'd be remiss to not immediately mention Anne-Marie Peters and what she's done on grants. I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah. And of course, Amy Brumfield, who we brought on recently, has worked on submitting a few different grants. But Julie McMurtry and I have really done a lot of grant work. We've submitted several federal grants, and we've got one major one left to submit, and we'll work with Amy on that one. But we were just recently extremely successful in the C-Campus grant. C-Campus stands for Child Care Access Means Parents in Schools. And so this was our first Department of Education federal grant that we received here at College of Eastern Idaho. And this grant we applied for gave us $30,000 a year for 4 years. So it's a $120,000 grant that we received. 100% of those funds will go to licensed child care providers in the region who provide child care services for our students. So if you're a single mom or a single dad, or you're and just need first allocation goes to economic need, but we have to spend that $30,000 every year. So students with children who need child care are able to come to the Center for New Directions, apply either virtually or in person, and get support. And we've already had 6 students receive funds. We just got this grant October 1st. And we've already had 6 students receive the funds, and we've got 12 applications in the running. And we're going to spend that $30,000 every year for 4 years, and then we're going to reapply, and we're going to ask for even more because we'll have a greater eligibility by then, and we're going to be successful every year. We've also applied for the TRIO grant, Student Support Services. We were unsuccessful this first application, but our score wasn't. It was a very high score on our grant, and so we will reapply, and we'll get it. We're going to get it. We're going to be systematic. We've counseled and consulted. RBDC, the Research and Development organization up in Rexburg, helped us a little bit with that initially, and then Julie and I kind of went in on a whirlwind, and Haley Holland helped as well. And we're going to get that one done as well. The other grant that I wanted to talk about is one that Amy Brumfield is now working on, that Julie and I got a lot of work done on it already initially, called the Title III Strengthening Institutions Grant. And that grant will be applied for sometime this or next year. I think the initial application is due soon to be eligible to apply for it. And then we apply actually next year. But the Strengthening Institutions grant has a lot of facets, can be very helpful. And then there's a Strengthening Community Colleges grant that Michelle Holt and Amy Brumfield and Debbie Borick and a few others in workforce training and continuing education have worked on. And that's a successful one I'm really excited about. But really, we're getting to the point, I think, Rick, where we're at a almost torch point where we need a full-time grants administrator and writer. I think it's gotten to the place where we know we can be successful at getting these grants. We know that we will be able to use those funds and report those funds with good stewardship. And our business office, Malcolm and Janice particularly work on these types of projects, can support it, right? So yeah. I think Don does some work there too. So if we're going to be successful, then let's get as many of these grants as we can. It's sort of that new arm in community college funding, right? And I have a little experience with it at my previous institution. We did some grants at Utah Valley, and I've worked on partnerships at Salt Lake Community College and others for some grants. But it's a really powerful tool. Some of the bigger community colleges, that's how they fund a lot of their initiatives.
It's pretty clear that is one of the realms we're going to have to delve into, because we're just unsure from a state level what kind of funding we're going to see. So I'm going to probably regret asking this, but what new initiatives? So here's the deal. I'll set this up. We're beginning to future, and futuring is different than strategic planning. So Vice President Barber has been sitting down with the deans and talking about futuring. So what do you see in the future? And if we see things in the future, then we need programs to support that. So give us a couple of areas of new initiatives you think our students would benefit from.
So we're at a tipping point pretty close with our academic advising model at College Beach Strand House. So we're going to have to change that a little bit. I think Armed Forces Center and Veterans Center, really we need to spend more money as money becomes available for a coordinator for that program. I'd like to see student life and esports and intramurals grow here. We have proof of concept in both intramurals and esports, both from traditional and non-traditional age students, which is interesting, right? That these are things that students are interested in. And obviously I'm looking at it from a student perspective. Now, if I'm looking at it from a programmatic perspective, I would say some different things. I'm really fascinated by Department of Energy projects. So nuclear, I'm fascinated by electric vehicles. I think that's really interesting. Career services. We need to do more in career services. We need to, we'll have a lot of work in compliance. We're going to restructure our compliance, student affairs compliance office a little bit in the coming years, because I think there's growth in that sort of disability resources and Title IX field. And I think also just in terms of support, finding ways to make virtual as good as anything else. And so we're always looking at that, doing that. We have been for about 1.5 years. And then from the instructional side, we've been doing that since before I got here with Ryan's group. I think we really have to rethink how we support students, find success, find a model that will help. I don't want to say cradle to grave, right? I want to say start to finish on our model. And then also, I think really getting students excited about programs in middle school, and throughout high school. I think doing more. I can't wait. Honestly, I think we all feel this way. I can't wait till this pandemic is over, because it's really important for us to get that hands-on experience for middle schoolers and then high schoolers, so they know what kind of career fields are out there. Man, if I had known about some of these partnerships with Idaho National Lab as a young student, I probably wouldn't have majored in history. So this is a loss for history majors. But I mean, I loved my history majors. Don't get me wrong. I don't regret any part of my education. But right. I think if I had that STEM interaction, it would have been really helpful in terms of getting the excitement behind those kinds of careers. And we need people in all fields, in the social sciences and in the humanities, to be engaged in multidisciplinary exploration, because it's just good for the brain and it's good for humanity. And also, look, I was talking to a guy who was in a partnership with a corporation that I had at my last institution. His name's Scott from Bottega, and he was talking about how they like to train English majors to do coding, because that critical thinking skill is really important. So we're at College of Eastern Idaho, we have career technical and we have general education, but we're educating the whole person. So you come away from this employable and able to do a variety of different things. And the digital humanities is something else that I think about in that regard as well. Anyway, I think I've meandered from the original question.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what there's a variety of things that we can do. And actually, you bring up an important point that we're beginning to talk about when we have a graduate. There are three legs to their experience here at the college. One is obviously a degree, whether it's Associate of Arts, Associate of Science, or Associate of Applied Science. So they get a degree. The second thing we want is some industry experience, and that's where internships or even some brief connection with business and industry or nonprofits, those kind of things. That's the second leg. And then the third leg is an industry recognized certification, exactly what you described. And if we could have a graduate that would have all three of those, they're virtually assured a job, and we would be transferring a lot of our students onto a university with an industry recognized certification, whether it's project management, data analytics, or Cisco networking certifications. Those are. I think we're doing exactly the right things for our students when we give them the opportunity for those three.
I agree. Yeah, there can't be anything better than for an employer than to have somebody that's got the brain, that's got the brawn, and that's got the head and the experience in the certification to be able to do those things. And I use those terms very loosely and metaphorically. I'm talking men and women. I'm talking people who can think and who can do, and who also have a certification to prove it. So I completely agree.
You know, Mike, I was worried about dead air time. So I was worried that we would talk for 10 minutes and then it'd be completely dead. But it didn't happen. In fact, we ran out of time. So
I don't think I've ever had dead air.
Well, maybe not. It could have.
I fill that air with hot air sometimes, but it's never dead.
Your words, not mine. So what we like to do is end with three leadership principles that you've used over your career, and you've got a vast experience in post-secondary education. So give us three of those principles that you would like to pass on.
Well, this is going to be from a very inclusive and student affairs type of lens. The first one is inclusivity. So I like the idea of including everyone. Come as you are, bring it all to the table, whatever that means. The second one is I try to, as a leader, have empathy. And then the third would be motivation. So I try to find ways to help my staff and help our students be motivated and excited. And sometimes that motivation is a little extra time. Sometimes that motivation is team building. Sometimes that motivation is a new project or task. Sometimes that motivation is encouragement. Sometimes that motivation is patience. Sometimes that motivation is listening. But it always comes with empathy, and it always comes with being inclusive. I want all of our students to feel like they matter and that they're heard. I want all of our staff and employees to feel the same way. And I want the business and industry to feel like we are a resource for them. We will listen to them. We will apply their ideas and have an educational experience that gets them the employees they need.
Well, Mike, the college has greatly benefited from you being here. Our students have greatly benefited from you being here. You certainly are thinking out of the box, and this is the kind of institution that can do that. So it's a pleasure taking 45 minutes with you and just getting a chance, especially for our viewers who don't know you. It's a nice window into the strategic directions that you're thinking. So we appreciate that. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate it. Appreciate your leadership and our whole leadership team.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me, I'm not sure what the weather's going to look like this weekend, but I want to thank you all for viewing and your contribution to the college and how we're looking at this region and certainly the niche that this college can play. So I want to just hope that you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. So thank you all for joining us.